Hello, and welcome to your first lab video. Uh, so you should have watched lecture 1 already, and if you haven't, please go back and do that. You'll find a link to the lab in Centennial in the week 1 content. Just look through everything, which you should have looked through everything, right? Now the labs are all going to be formatted in the same way, and once you're into any of the labs, this is actually a fully functional website, and you're going to learn like 98% of the code that I used over the course of the semester to make this work. So you can just get from any lab to the other like that, and if you're looking at this on a mobile device, which I can try to simulate there, you can notice it's mobile friendly. I didn't do a drop down or anything. I probably could have, but eh. And yes, that's Baby Yoda in the background, or Grogu on my wife's computer. So each lab is structured with an overview. You've got an access to the lecture slides embedded, which is pretty awesome. And then we're just going to jump right into everything. And I should mention again, I'm just going to jump to the bottom for a second. There's exploration instructions and lab completion instructions right at the bottom. Do follow the lab completion stuff because that's useful. It tells you how to submit the lab, which varies a little bit depending on the lab. The exploration questions are for your reference only, but if you can answer those, you should do very well on the quiz, right? They're study materials for the quiz that you're going to be doing. So I'm going to pull this off the screen and actually start doing things in a minute and start talking less. But you should have received an email, and I mentioned this in the last video, inviting you to the Learner Lab, the AWS Academy Learner Lab. It looks like this. If you've received and accepted that, you can continue doing the video or the lab that I'm demonstrating for you right now. If you haven't, go, just pause, stop, whatever, go send me an email. I would double check your email first and make sure it's not in there. Maybe it's in your spam folder. It's in your Centennial email, right? Your Centennial College, my.centennialcollege.ca. And if you don't have one, send me an email and I will get one to you right away. Being as soon as I receive the email and get a chance to do something about it. You need access to do this. If you don't have access to do this, then you can't do anything. I should also mention, these demo videos are not really intended for you to just kind of watch and follow along. The idea is you watch this and you see me do it, but the lab instructions themselves should be sufficient for you to do everything. And when you're watching this, make some notes, right? If anything looks tricky or I mention this as a tricky thing, make sure you do this. Write it down somewhere. So once you've accepted your invitation, you can actually just open the Learner Lab. I embedded a login link here, and fire it up. And let's go see what that looks like. It's going to be a bit different for me, so I'm going to pause and then resume, and you won't notice the difference. So I'm going to log in first. There we go. So I'm in the Learner Lab now. It says I'm in student view down here, and that's because I've got a different view by default, right? I have to go into student view to show you things, and this is how it's going to look for you. To access the Learner Lab, we're actually going to do things. You click Modules here, and then click Learner Lab, and there's a student guide that has some useful stuff there. You probably want to check that out. So you click that Learner Lab link. The first time you're going to have to accept the terms and conditions here, so I'm just going to go to the bottom because I've read these before, most of them anyway. And the first time this starts up, it might be a little bit slow. But I want to point out a few, before we get into anything, a few things that are useful here. To start the lab, you just click Start there. To stop the lab when you're done, click Stop there. They will auto stop after 4 hours, but you can extend the session if you're still working on something. none of the labs that we're doing in this course should take you 4 hours, by the way. They should be doable within about an hour. And that AWS thing there, that's actually a link that we're going to talk about in a second, but it has an indicator next to it. It's red currently, so that means it's stopped. And watch what happens when I start it. And again, this might take up a little bit longer the first time. So we see it's yellow now and it's starting. I'm just going to pause and then I'll resume when it's started. All right, so once the Learner Lab has started, you'll see that green dot, or that dot has gone green. That indicates it's been started. And you're going to see this in the middle here. It shows how much of that $100 credit you've used. You're going to see this goes up from time to time. And you see how much is remaining how much time is remaining in the current lab session. When that run hits 0, it's going to end. But any data and stuff you've created in AWS will still be there. So that's a handy thing. Any running instances you leave on, as you see here, they're going to be stopped and they'll be restarted the next time you log in. So that's great. You're going to want to monitor this stuff, right? It's not always 100% up to date, but it updates every 8 to 12 hours, so it might be a little bit behind what you've actually used. And the important part in here is, if that hits 100 of 100, all of your stuff is deleted and your account's disabled. So you need to manage that budget. I mentioned this in the lecture, right? If you do things according to the labs, you should be totally fine. Nothing to worry about. So now that we're in, we're going to click that, and hey, look, here we are. And I've got a bunch of stuff here in my recently visited that I'm surprised shows up here. That's impressive because that's syncing from another Learner Lab session. You're probably not going to have anything there. Even my pin stuff. It's interesting. I'm going to show you how to do that. The two most common things we're going to use are EC2 and VPC, which I talked about. So to get into these, you can click on services and scroll through. If we go to networking content delivery, which is right here, there's VPC, and if you see, if you hover over something, you see that star. If you just click that, it'll be added to your favorites like that, which is a useful thing. We're going to go ahead and can I move that now? Yeah, I want to move it back. I'm going to go ahead and click on VPC. So we've logged in, and we're going to look for security groups under security right here. I'll click that, and we should see the screenshot depicted in the lab. Now if we look at our inbound rules, we're going to need to edit these because we're not going to be able to access anything currently. Now your security group, it's kind of like a firewall, but remember how we said everything's as a service in the cloud, right? Security group is kind of like a firewall as a service. So it applies to your entire cloud infrastructure. It blocks everything by default. So unless there's a rule allowing something, it's going to block it. We want to allow incoming SSH traffic because otherwise we're not going to be able to do anything. So if we go to edit rules, and we can say allow, we're going to add rule, right? Allow. You could specify SSH here, or you could just type 22 here. That's the port for SSH. And the source, we're going to use the anywhere IP, which is 0.0.0.0/0. And then we click Save Rules. And we should see there's our rules. That's going to allow any incoming SSH traffic into our instances that we create in AWS. It's a handy thing. That's all we're going to do with the VPC for the moment. We're going to come back here later. Now we want to go into EC2. You could do that by going to Services, and under Compute, EC2 is right there. And again, favorite it if it's not. You might want to add that because it's handy, right? We'll just click on it there once it's there. And here's what we've got going on. So we see we've got a security group, we've got a key pair. This is a nice overview of everything we've got configured. These are the default ones. And we've got nothing. We've got nothing else because we've done nothing else. Now this is where we're going to do things like configure instances. This is where later in the semester we're going to do things like configure an elastic IP, which is allocating a static IP to actually more like a DHCP reservation to an instance. Useful stuff. So we're going to spin up a new instance. We want to go to instances. You could get there this way. You could get there this way. You could even just click launch instance and do that here. We'll just do that. So we're going to click launch instance. We're going to call this one first, and I gave it an uppercase. So let's use the uppercase. We're going to select Ubuntu 22.04, and we're going to AMI, yep, 22.04. So Ubuntu there first, Ubuntu, and that AMI. That's the first bit there. Now we're going to create our SSH key pair. You're not going to want to lose this because you won't be able to get into the instance. So create new pair. We're going to call it a .pem, and we're going to call it, what did I tell you to call it? CNET 204. We're going to create the pair, and look at that, it downloaded. Now a note, don't lose that, because if you lose that, you're not going to be able to get into your instance, which means you're going to have to create a new instance. There are ways that you can recover these. It's not easy, and it's not intro stuff. We'll cover that down the road. For now, if you lose it, you need a new one, right? Just don't lose it. So you might want to back this up on a flash drive or an external USB drive. I'd stick it somewhere securely. You could stick it in your H drive at the college. That's a handy place to put it, because that is mapped to any PC that you log in from, and you can access it through my Centennial. So that's a handy thing. I'm not on a college PC, so I can't stick it in my H drive. So I've got my PEM key. We're going to go to under network settings now. We're going to click edit. No, we're not going to click edit. We're just going to select the existing security group. Nope. Hold on, did I skip something? I didn't skip something. We're going to use the default security group. So we're just going to make sure we select default, because we're not going to create a new security group. We're just going to use the one that was provided, which we added some rules to already, right? I had to think about that quickly. And then we're going to click launch instance. We don't need anything else here. We don't need anything under advanced details. Feel free to look through and have a look at what you can do, but we don't need any of it for now. We're just going to spin this up. Let's click launch. And it's done. How do you access it? Well, you just click here. And that brings you to the management console. It's not actually done, right? It's building it now. So if we just, we can refresh. And it's running. There we go. That's pretty awesome. Now, how do we access it? Well, if we click on our instance there, we see it's running. It's got some IPs. There's all kinds of useful information in here. And if we want to connect, there's a couple different ways you can do this. We're going to do it from command line only initially, but I'm going to show you a couple other different ways as well. Sorry, we're not going to do command line only initially. We're going to do command line only in a minute. If we click on connect, you can see we go to SSH. It gives you the command right there that you need. If you go to EC2 connect and click connect, you can actually just connect through a web browser. So that's pretty handy too. There you go, I've got a command prompt. I'm connected. That's great. If I want to get out of this, I can just close it. Like so. Now I'm going to show you doing it from the command line. So we've got that .pem file, right? And we've got our sample command here. We can just copy that if we want. It's pretty handy. And I mentioned in the lecture that it's the same command whether you're using Linux, Windows, or Mac OS. You're just operating it or opening a different thing. So I'm going to pull this over. I'm in. Let's make my font a little bit bigger. Hold on a second. There we go. My font's a little bit bigger. I'm in the download directory. So we see I've got my CNET 204 PEM that I created here. Don't worry about that. That's something else. And I'm just going to paste that command in. We say yes. And oh look, it says it's too open. It's too open. So we need to change the file permissions on that. So we're going to use chmod. It wants it to be. It actually doesn't tell you what it wants it to be, but let's make it 600. It's required that it's not accessible by others. 600 will do that. And then, if I try this again, there we go, I'm in. I've got access from the command prompt. You might not need to do that in Windows or Mac OS. I did need to do it in Linux here. So, there's that. I can actually show you what it's like from a Windows environment. Hold on. Because this was pretty short. Alright, so as promised, here I am in Windows. This is a Windows 10 virtual machine. It's kind of the only use I have for Windows. There's a bunch of crap on the screen because I copied stuff to here. I copied my PEM file so I can access my my instance. So just need that command ssh-i cnet204.pem ubuntu ebu that's the user at ec2 dash. So this is going to be different for you, right? It's going to be unique for every single person. Compute -1.amazon aws.com. Say yes. And there we go. I'm in. And look at that. I didn't need to change the permissions. Might be because I already did that in Linux. Yeah. Not 100% sure on that. And that's it. That's all you need to do for Lab 1. So you're going to take a screenshot of this, that you're connected, submit it to the Dropbox on eCentennial, and you're good to go. Now that you've done this, how do you get out? Well, Control D will log you out. If we SSH again, I could type exit, and if we do it again, I could type log out. Any of the three of those are acceptable. Control and the letter D at the same time, or exit or log out. And I'm going to show you one more thing. When we're done, you're going to want to shut down the Learner Lab. You don't necessarily have to shut down your instances. You just stop the Learner Lab. So I can close all this stuff. I'm going to click on End Lab, say yes. and we see it's red and it's stopped. And then I'm going to want to sign out. And you're good to go. That was Lab 1. Thank you for watching. Take care. Be safe. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you in next week's videos. Or rather, you'll see me.